we had a wonderful trip to Scotland, and we have some fantastic photos and video clips to show, thanks to Julian. The idea of the trip was that we take the class and economics out of the classroom and put it in the real world where it belongs, to see how the things that we've learnt from books and discussions actually fit into real world situations. And that was the idea behind going with the class to Scotland. And in general, I think it was a huge success and we achieved everything that we wanted to. We started with a long journey by train, mostly because we can't really trust the airline industry to get us there safely and quickly, and we'd lose all our money if a flight was cancelled, which happened once before. So we took the train from here to London and from London up to Glasgow. It took a long time, but the students were fantastic. They brought their own entertainment, they brought their cards, their videos, their iPods. There was some betting going on, some poker games, and we had some entertainment when certain passengers wanted to stay in the carriage and chat to the students, and basically had to be chased out by the rest of us teachers. I'm not quite sure why they wanted to spend their time with 52 16-year-olds, but there you go. We got to Scotland late at night and made our bus trip over to the youth hostel where we were staying. The youth hostel was in New Lanark, which is a World Heritage Site. Factory was built by David Owen, one of the first factories, steam-powered factories in Europe, and a model of the cooperative movement and social reform. The next morning we went to Stagecoach. Stagecoach is owned and run by a friend of mine from university, and one of the big attractions for many of the students who are going to Stagecoach is that he is a bit of a millionaire and made his money through very hard work and a real entrepreneurial spirit, running bus company. Brian unfortunately couldn't be with us, but Stephen Stewart, his PR and information manager, was there, and he spent 2-3 hours with us talking about the challenges of running a bus company, the challenges of running a business, the challenges of the EU and legislation. And the students were very interested, especially in the ecological issues. Asked intelligent questions, gave some good ideas, and I think a good time was had for all. They provided us with a free lunch, so there is such a thing as a free lunch, especially in Scotland. We then went on to the castle, Edinburgh Castle, where fortunately the weather was fantastic, blue skies, freezing cold, sunshine, but we had some great views across the Firth of Forth, over the sea into the mountains on the other side of the Firth, and enjoyed that. That evening we went to a Scottish ceilidh, which was in a school in North Berg, where my family come from, and my niece helped to set that up. So the students from the European school had their first taste of dancing, Scottish country dancing, and some of them were showing great skill and attracted the rest of the other members of the opposite sex through their skill in language learning and being so sociable. And I think in general it was a big success and everyone enjoyed it. We were piped by a Scottish piper into the hall and back out again. The next day we went to Celtic Park. Celtic Park is the home of the football clubs Glasgow Celtic. It's one of the most successful, one of the only 2 successful football teams in Scotland. And we did a tour there. We were split into 2 groups. One group went with a lady who was an excellent guide, the others went with an older man who unfortunately wasn't a particularly good guide, and many came out feeling a bit upset by some of the things that he said. I guess it was a taste of some of the bigoted attitudes that you can find in Scotland. It was reality. There are people who still have very closed minds and can't think outside the city, never mind their own religious beliefs. And it was a good chance for the pupils to actually see that this happens, because in our school generally we are very open-minded and want to learn from each other rather than being afraid of someone who's a bit different. From there we went on to a church where my cousin is the vicar, and I had asked him to speak to the pupils about the social consequences of deindustrialisation. We'd done deindustrialisation as a topic in the school, in the class, and it can be a bit dry unless you see the realities of it and the consequences of what it actually means when people lose their jobs and when people's fathers and grandfathers had never worked, where people are living on minimum wage or on unemployment, where social housing is very, very poor, where school standards are terrible. And Ian, my cousin, was very good in making what we talked about in the class more real, and we had a lot of good discussion about what you can actually do about these situations. And I'm sure it wasn't much different to the discussions that go on in the city councils and in the parliaments around Scotland and in other countries, trying to deal with socially deprived areas. And there are no easy answers, but the students were incredibly engaged, asked a lot of intelligent questions, discussed, debated, and I think it made quite a good impression in that they'll take away the ideas and think about them. That evening we went bowling. It was the only time it rained, and it didn't really affect us because we were inside bowling, and this is where the competitive gladiator spirits came out amongst the class, both the girls and the boys, to see who could get the best prize. It was a good fun night, thoroughly enjoyed it. I was totally rubbish, but that doesn't matter, so were lots of other people. But we had a good night together and got back safely to the youth hostel. The following day, the last full day that we had, we went on the tour around New Lanark as a factory, as part of the Industrial Revolution, which is part of the students' fifth year course. We looked at the housing there, looked at the cooperative movement which grew out of New Lanark, and which David Owen then eventually took to America. We visited the factory where they made the cotton and saw the links to trade, world trade, social conditions, history, economics, economies of scale, all of those things that we've been discussing in class. So that was positive. We then went on to Edinburgh, where the students had time to spend money and go shopping, which they thoroughly enjoyed. Many of them eating Burger King, I think, was a big attraction. And KFC as well, as if Scotland doesn't have enough bad food. We went for that as well. Then we had a ghost walk around the city, telling some of the stories, the gruesome stories of the body snatchers in Edinburgh, and some of the ghosts in some of the vaults where people hid and have lived actually down through the centuries. In general, I have to say this was the best and most successful trip I've ever done. Thoroughly enjoyed it, as did all the teachers who were there. The pupils didn't give us one moment's concern, apart from now and again being late for the bus due to hair issues or makeup issues. But apart from that, everything was fantastic. Really intelligent, fun, well-mannered, enjoyable trip, and it gave me the impetus to do it again. Sometimes you come back from these trips and think, I don't want to ever do one of these again, but certainly not. It was a great success, and it was the pupils, down to pupils, that made it that way. So thanks to everybody. Thanks for all the work and for all the fun and for all the laughs and for all the learning. I hope that will stick with you.